Okay, good evening, everybody. We'd like to welcome you to this evening's Planning Board meeting for tonight, April 27th, 2023. And I would like to call to order now the meeting. And if I could ask everybody to rise and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Planning Board of Adjustment has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting by predominantly posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, date, location, and agenda of this meeting, mailing such announcement to the Home News Tribune, and filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk. Ms. Cannon?
Here.
Mr. Lenning?
Here.
Mr. Makis?
Here.
Mr. De Palma?
Here.
Mr. Lauer?
Here.
Mr. Renner?
Here.
Mr. Petty?
Here.
Ms. Masella?
Here.
And Chair Marucci.
Here. Okay, and I would like to remind everybody that we are televised and will be until 10 p.m. Okay, we are going to begin the agenda this evening with resolutions. Let me just get a, okay, Vina, would you like me to do these as a group or individually?
We have to do individually. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first is Resolution 69-2020P Oak 18 LLC for an extension of time. And if I could get a motion on that?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Lenning, second by Ms. Cannon.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
And Chair Marucci.
Yes. Okay, number two is number 35-2021P G&A Investments LLC with a minor subdivision with a C variance. And if I can get a motion?
I'll move it.
By Mr. Lauer.
Second.
And a second by Mr. De Palma.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
And Chair Marucci.
Yes. And number three is number 12-2022P Alferi Old Bridge Associates LLC, legal counsel for appeal. Can I get a motion?
I'll move it.
By Mr. Lenning, and a second? By Ms. Cannon.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Chair Marucci.
Yes. And the last resolution, number four, is, and I don't see a number here, an application number, but it's a Route 35 intersection. Resolution recommending properties be designated as an area in need of non-condemnation redevelopment and/or rehabilitation. Motion?
I'll move it forward.
By Mr. Lauer, in a second.
I'll second.
By Mr. Lenning.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Chair Marucci.
Yes. Okay, that is the end of the resolutions, and it moves us on to a consistency review, which I'll pass off to Ms. Sawant. It's an ordinance of the Township of Old Bridge to rezone certain property to be included in the R120 zoning district to amend the township zoning map accordingly.
Good evening, board members. This is a referral from the council. It was presented to the council with a recommendation to rezone property located, also known as Block 23,001, Lot, it's 9.11. It's currently zoned as SD5, and there is a recommendation to rezone it to R120 single-family home residential zone. As you may recall, actually, I just checked, it was exactly last year on 28th April that I made a presentation to the planning board with an amendment to the master plan re-examination report. And when I gave a presentation, I had mentioned that there were numerous recommendations in the master plan re-exam in that iteration, which were combined efforts of the administration and the Old Bridge Redevelopment Agency, because we were looking at areas within the township that have a potential to be redeveloped or rezoned. And there were a list of properties, example, Global Landfill, the summer landfill site, which you will hear in the next presentation. It is being reviewed for area investigation. Route 35 corridor, which you already heard at the last meeting, and you passed a resolution recommending that the council designate the area as in need of redevelopment and rehabilitation. There was another site, a large underutilized parcel, Raceway Park, that was mentioned in the recommendations that it should be evaluated either for redevelopment or rezone. This ordinance change or rezone is pertaining to that recommendation. And the property is currently zoned as SD5. There is also, SD5 is the special development zone. And the property also has an overlay, because you all know there's an airport, has an overlay of airport hazard area. Now, under the current zoning, if the property was to be developed, with the bulk standards and the regulations that are in place, you could put in a 3 million square feet of commercial space on this. We believe that that area does not have adequate infrastructure, roadway improvements, infrastructure in place to really support that type of development. The one other thing that we usually evaluate is what is the neighboring land use and what is the neighboring zoning. This property is surrounded by R120 zone, which is the minimum 3-acre lots, single-family homes, except on one side, which is township-owned parcel and is zoned for ER zone. But everything that is developable is R120. The property sits right at the common municipal boundary of Old Bridge and Manalapan. If you look on the other side, Manalapan has an area zoned as R40, R20, but the existing land use is at 3-acre minimum. They have single-family homes that have a minimum 3-acre lot size. Some of them are larger. So now, and one important thing is the airport hazard area zone overlay, it actually straddles on the municipal boundary. So a portion of it is in Manalapan and a portion of it is in Old Bridge. The one interesting thing about that airport hazard overlay zone is that no development is permitted in that zone, except for you could have a single family home if it is limited to 3-acre lot minimum. So the proposal to change from SD5 to R120 is consistent with the airport hazard area standards. Now, you all know there are numerous purposes of municipal land use law. One of the main one is health, safety, and general welfare of the public. Knowing that there isn't adequate infrastructure to support a commercial development that scale, it would be appropriate, or this rezoning would be consistent or would advance the purposes of municipal land use law. The other important purpose is that when a municipality plans for an area, you have to ensure that it is consistent with the neighboring town and the neighboring land uses. Like I said, Manalapan has 3-acre zoning in place already. They kind of mimic what is in surrounding SD5 zone in Old Bridge. So I think rezoning the property advances numerous purposes of municipal land use law. Many of you who have known that area know of the traffic and congestion and concerns that exist. So, but again, the proposed zone change is very much in sync with the recommendations of the master plan, and I'll take any questions should the board have any questions. Yes, I'll take any questions.
That sums up your, okay.
Yes.
Okay, do we have any questions from the board members for Ms. Sawant?
Any comments?
Any comments?
I have a comment.
Okay, let's hear it.
I think this is really important, especially for that last parcel that you were talking about. The roadways are not going to be able to handle, big trucks coming down. I know from previous testimony and other applications, Texas Road really can't be widened because of, wetlands and stuff like that. So, I appreciate you taking steps to look into this.
Actually, since you bring up that point, I want to let the board know, I know a couple of months ago, there was an application for a flex space on Texas Road. There were concerns about truck traffic and the movements on Texas Road, and we are working very closely with the county, and probably we are close to getting consensus. There will be no left turns on Texas Road as of now. I mean, we still haven't finalized it, but there will be no left turns on Texas Road. And also, there is a travel central lane that has been widened and lengthened so that it is a dedicated lane for trucks to turn in. Now, knowing that there are wetlands and constraints and Texas Road cannot be widened, we're doing as much as we can. And we have been working very closely with the county.
And if I could piggyback on that, I live on Englishtown Road, about a half a mile away from Texas Road, and I work from home now after COVID, and the truck traffic on that road, it dominates the passenger vehicle traffic. I mean, constantly, every, maybe fifth truck is a car. They're large tractor trailers. I can't put my kids on their bicycles out on Englishtown Road. And so we can't handle much more truck traffic on that road, if any at all.
And that's on the weekend. That's during the week.
That's
right?
during the week. I'm home. I'm looking at
On the
my
weekends, it's even worse.
It's even, it can't get much worse. I mean, it's really, really
I've
rough.
seen that traffic back up for miles to try to get down Texas Road from
Yeah.
Englishtown Road.
Yeah.
For
And
miles.
it's large transport trucks, tractor trailers. It's triaxles, tandems, lowboys with construction equipment on them. And I don't know, it's only happened in the past year or so. So I don't know if somebody found a shortcut and got on the radio and, hey, this is a great, great road to travel on. And it's brutal. It's brutal. And I have two teenage daughters and a 12-year-old son. And they're constantly, hey, can I get on a bike and ride to Wawa? Can I go to Dunkin' Donuts? No, let's go. I'll drive you there, but I'm not letting you get out on that road. And I'm not an overprotective dad. I let them go, but not on that road. So it's getting bad. Okay. So anything else from anybody?
Mr. Chairman, just to remind the board, this is a consistency review under the MLUL, so what you're being asked of right now, based on Ms. Sawant's explanation of the ordinance, is a finding of whether or not this ordinance is consistent or inconsistent with the master plan. If you find that it is not inconsistent, then you would vote in favor, and there's a draft resolution in front of all the board members providing that determination and and then for that to be sent to the municipal body so that it can consider the ordinance for public hearing and adoption.
Can you dig a little deeper into that? Because I know we had this once before. Sure. The way you vote, sometimes we think if we're voting yes, it's actually we're voting no, but it's kind of confusing.
Yes, no, this is, the wording of the statute in the MLU is a little confusing because it's the determination of whether or not it's not inconsistent. So it's a double negative. So what you're saying is you're finding that it is consistent.
So if we vote
Yes, you're finding that it is consistent with the master plan. Yes.
Okay, has everybody got that?
And this is for all of the properties that were mentioned, or just one?
This is just just the one lot, 9.11, block 23001.
Okay, and a no is inconsistent.
Correct.
Okay.
Wait,
What's that? Casey?
I think you got,
Don't vote.
no, you have other people have questions.
Go ahead.
What if somebody abstains?
Okay, thanks for the explanation, Venus. So from your explanation, I kind of figured where it was, and sorry if I missed it because I wasn't at last meeting, but Where exactly is this? I heard Old Bridge, Manalapan border, so I kind of know where it is. Yep, okay. Thank you.
Okay, and Steve, a vote of abstinence, that's the same as any other vote you would abstain to.
So the question is, even for the board members, do we know if it's consistent with the master plan? Just simple enough. So, we may vote yes or no, but is it consistent? Because many of them have not seen the master plan. I just want to clarify, so some of...
Steve, I think at the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned that last year, based on the Old Bridge Redevelopment Agency efforts as well as the administration's efforts, we looked at numerous areas within the township that may be evaluated for redevelopment or rezoning. There were a list of properties: Global Landfill, Summer Landfill Site, Route 35 corridor. Also, there were some large underutilized parcels. One of them was Raceway Park, and we had recommended that the township look at it for either redevelopment or rezoning. This is an ordinance to rezone the property.
I understand. I just wanted to clarify for some of our members who may not know if it's consistent with the master plan. Simple.
Okay, is everybody clear? Everybody have any questions? Because I know it can be a little confusing. It is to me as well. So we're all good? Okay, so we'll put it to a vote. All right, can I get a motion?
I'll move it.
By Mr. Lennox, second.
Second.
By Mr. DePalma.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Amakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Chair Marucci?
Yes. Okay, thank you, everybody. And then we move on to a public hearing for the Old Bridge property summer landfill area in need of redevelopment study. And again, we'll pass that off to Vina.
And Ms. Swan, I think I need to swear you in for this because you're actually providing testimony here. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. As long as the chairman accepts you, I still think you're fine.
Let's hear it. No. Accepted.
Board members, again, this is one of the area investigation studies which was recommended as part of our master plan re-exam amendment last year because, as you all know, there are two landfills within, there were two landfills within Old Bridge, Global Landfill Site and the Summer landfill property. We already went through the area investigation and a plan process for Global Landfill. This area directly abuts the Global Landfill area to the south, and it fronts on Old Road and Harder Lanes and Route 9. That's the area I'm talking about, which was a municipal landfill at some time back, almost 30, 40 years ago, and had contamination on the property. There were drums found when DEP investigated, and the operation has been ceased since then, and it has gone through extensive environmental investigation and litigation process. So this area comprises of 11 parcels. All of them lie within that area. The area is approximately 260 acres, but out of that, almost 230 acres is the summer property which contained the landfill. There are 3 parcels that lie within the CC commercial zone. The remainder properties lie within the ER environmental recreational zone, and you already have received a copy of the investigation study. Danny, can you put up the site? This is the area. It's right next to Global Landfill. You can see to the right side of the concept drawing or the aerial map, the landfill property, a global landfill property, and this is a huge area, but only contains 11 parcels. Most of them are vacant, except for the 3 properties that are located along Route 9, which are in the CC zone. Majority of the area is vacant. Next page. The 11 parcels are listed on the screen, and as I mentioned before, the largest parcel is the Summerside, which is 234 acres. The rest of the properties are tiny, but together they measure, the area measures 260 acres. Next slide. The property, like I mentioned, is in the ER, mostly in the ER zone. Only the commercial properties are located in the CC zone. By means of background, there was a landfill, a municipal landfill that was operated at the Summerside between mid-1900s and 1968. In 1986, DEP was notified of existence of drums there. On April 7th, 1986, during a site visit, NJTEP found 200 drums were located on the site. There was an investigation that was initiated by the property owner, and it was conducted on August 18, 1986. There were 631 drums found at the location, and it included tars, raisins, and unknown solids. Again, a few months later, the investigation was removed, and more drums were removed from the site. Pursuant to a certain contingent settlement agreement between the township agreed to undertake remediation of the former municipal landfill site because we had been dumping on the site. Pursuant to that settlement agreement, the township agreed to, among others, to remediate certain contamination issues on the Summer site. Later on, DEP came back and required the township to look for groundwater contamination. And it was not just on the landfill site, but the surrounding areas. So the landfill was 15 acres, and the surrounding area, which is roughly 215 acres, they required the township to investigate it for groundwater contamination. Later on, again, they came back saying, we want to see if there is any potential groundwater contamination on other properties surrounding the landfill. So it has been an ongoing process, and it has been a very cumbersome, lengthy process because of the involvement of environmental investigation, global landfill being right next to it. So we are still in the investigation process. Apparently, early samples have shown that there is groundwater contamination on some of the sites. So the site definitely qualifies for redevelopment. But we went through each of the properties. Next slide, Danny. So we went through each of the properties to see which of them meet the criteria for redevelopment. By now, you guys are familiar with all the criteria. A, which is substandard, unsafe, dilapidated buildings. Criteria B, which is abandonment. C, which relates to vacant private or publicly owned land. D is when there is obsolete layout. E, when there is underutilization, delinquencies. Next slide. F, which is if the building has been destroyed due to fire or any natural calamity. G, which is if you're in an enterprise zone. H, if you're within the smart growth area. And section 3 is when a property does not meet any of the above criteria, but the inclusion of the property is required for sound planning. What I noticed, and as I mentioned before, majority of the properties, other than the commercial properties, are all vacant. So all of them meet criteria C. They also meet the section 3 criteria, but they're required for sound planning. There is one, you can go to the next slide, Danny. There is one parcel that meets criteria E because it has a municipal lien on the property. Now, the area that which contains the commercial properties, is within the smart growth planning area designated by the state. And so because they are in the smart growth area, they naturally meet criteria H, and so they have been included in the study. But that's the summary of findings. In my opinion, it meets each one of the 11 properties meets at least one. In fact, most of them meet 2 or 3 criteria of the redevelopment law. And I am comfortable recommending to the board that the area be designated as an area in need of redevelopment.
Vina, if I could ask, and I don't know how many from the public are here for this discussion, this hearing, but could you just explain a little deeper the word redevelopment, because I know that frightens some people?
So the redevelopment designation allows vacant, underutilized properties to have a chance to develop the properties. The advantage of being in a redevelopment area is then it allows the municipality to create a pilot, which is the payment in lieu of taxes. So the taxes can be worked out differently. And the reason a pilot is created is most of these times redevelopment projects include a lot of infrastructure, off-site infrastructure improvements. When somebody is putting in money to make those off-site improvements to offset, not entirely offset, but to offer as an incentive, the township works on a pilot program, and the pilot is generally created for 30 years. When it's a rehabilitation, which I went through in detail at the last meeting, then the township has the ability to give tax abatements up to 5 years if you qualify and follow the other rules. But this study is purely for redevelopment. If you choose not to do anything with the property, the township is not going to use eminent domain. We are not going to exercise that power. So you can continue with the use as it is would you want not to redevelop your property. But I think this process is important, especially because the summer site is a landfill site. It has not yet been remediated. In case of Global Landfill, which was also a landfill site, it was remediated, it was capped, but this site is still undergoing investigation and has yet to begin with the remedial process. So it's very important to include it in a redevelopment area.
Okay, thank you, Vina. Okay, do we have any questions from any of the board members for Ms. Sawant? You guys are quiet tonight. Mr. Lauer?
Chairman, I have a question. Vina, I know it's early in the process. My understanding is one, if not all of them, but one of the properties is eligible for to be on a historical register, National Historical Register. Are you aware of that? And
I don't believe so, because I had gone through the list a couple of times before. I have not seen the property on the list. And
no, I think it's just eligible. It's not on the list yet.
Oh, okay.
So my question is, if it gets on the list, will it impact the future?
I mean, like I said, whether it should be redeveloped or not, I don't know which property you're talking about, but whether you want to redevelop the property or not is completely on the owner. We're not exercising the power of eminent domain. So at some point, suppose if it goes on the list, then maybe the owner will not want to do anything with the property. We are not imposing anything on a property owner. Okay. But I mean, just going through the list, I know it's not on the list yet.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Okay, any of the other board members? Okay, Nicole, do you have anything? Okay. Okay, so I will now open it up to the public. If the public has any questions for Ms. Sawant. Wow. Okay, I will now close the public portion. I think there was somebody here. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, can you please state your name and your address, please?
Marilyn Thompson, Woodshore East.
Thank you.
I was really wanting to ask a question about the 35 corridor thing. Is that time to talk about that now?
No, that's not part of this hearing.
Well, are we going to talk about that again?
No, that's discussed at
it.
the last
That was all-
public
that was
hearing.
it.
Meeting, that
There's
was the
no-
previous
This was
meeting.
the only thing that was on this agenda was adopting the resolution memorializing the decision that was made by the board at the last public hearing.
So there aren't any more questions I can ask about that?
You can go back, if you wish, you can go back to YouTube and watch the presentation, and maybe someone in the crowd asked
I
a
was
question.
in the crowd. I know they didn't ask
Oh,
the
you-
question.
Oh, you were here?
If
Oh, okay.
if you do have questions, you can reach out directly to Vina and her team, and they'll be able to answer all the questions for you that
Thank
you
you.
have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else from the public for this application? Okay, so I will close the public portion. And, do you want to summarize?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So what the board is being asked to this evening, as it has in the past, is determination whether or not, based on the township planner's presentation, of whether or not these properties meet the criteria for redevelopment as been testified to. If so, then what the board does is make a recommendation to the governing body to designate these properties as redevelopment areas. So this is a vote in favor would be to recommend the governing body adopt designate these properties officially as redevelopment areas. This is not the plan. There's no redevelopment plan. This is just determining the first step, which is determining whether or not the properties meet the criteria and can be designated as a redevelopment area.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
And there is-
Sordillo.
Good
sorry,
question,
Mr.
actually.
There is a resolution that was circulated.
Sorry, it's
Ms.
kind of a
Masella?
background question. Sorry for not interjecting before at the time. What's typically the impetus for something like this? Is it the owner approaching the town or the town identifying the parcel for potential incentives to assist?
So in this case, the township has been looking at areas which have a potential for redevelopment, especially because we have a well-established Old Bridge Redevelopment Agency. The agency's role is to look at various areas. So as the agency planner, I look at areas, I make recommendations. We have monthly meetings where we discuss areas that really need to be looked at, and then we add it, because unless it is a recommendation in the master plan, I cannot undertake a redevelopment study. So once we agree, we add it as a recommendation in the master plan, and then take it to the council that we think that, XYZ area needs to be included and needs to be evaluated. Then the council authorizes the planning board to undertake a study. Should the planning board decide that it doesn't meet the criteria, then it doesn't get the designation. But if it meets at least one criteria of the redevelopment law, then the area can be designated as an area. And then it benefits from the benefits of having the area designation, because then it helps the township to look at off-site improvements to see if there are developers interested. If there is a developer interested, then work with them on the pilot program. But there are areas where, like, for example, Route 35 corridor, which we did last month, there are no developments. There is no plan in place. It's just that we believe that it meets the redevelopment and rehabilitation criteria, and it will benefit from the designation. Similarly, we have done in the past other areas. So there are almost like 8 or 9 areas within the township that are designated as areas in need of redevelopment now.
It's a good exercise, proactive. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, I'll put it to a vote. And do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
By Mr. Lenning, and a second?
Second.
By Mr. De Palma.
Ms. Cannon?
Yeah.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
And Chair Marucci.
Yes. Okay, now on the agenda, we move on to our first and only application this evening. and that's 47-2022P, New Private Restaurant Properties LLC, and it's the Outback, and it's for major preliminary and final site plans with C variances. This is deja vu all over again. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Ron Shimanowitz. Microphone. You got to have the little green ring on the bottom. Hit it until it goes green. There we go.
Now we're good?
Yep.
Okay, one more time. Good
Those
evening.
mics, you got to stay close.
Yes. Good evening, members of the board. Ron Shimanowitz here on behalf of the applicant, New Private Restaurant Properties LLC. Generally speaking, as the chair stated, this is all about the Outback Steakhouse restaurant, which I imagine most of you are familiar with. It's pretty well known in the town. We're before you tonight seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval with bulk variances and some design waivers. The property in question is known as Lot 1, Block 10257. It's approximately a little over 2 acres in size, and it's in your ED03 zone. Has frontage on Route 34, Route 9, and Perrine Road to the south. As the chair stated, it is a little bit of deja vu all over again. This board actually approved an application back in 2019 granting preliminary site plan approval for a different design on the site. At that time, the model for Outback was a little bit different, what Outback proposed. And more importantly, we were including what we called the state parcel. You'll hear testimony tonight what happened through that long, tortured history. It's a little bit unfortunate, but it brings us here tonight. So there was a prior approval on the site. That prior approval also included a retail component, so there's a separate standalone building. That's no longer there. So it's real simple now. Old buildings coming down, new state-of-the-art buildings coming up, and that's what you'll hear from our experts tonight. There are several bulk variances you'll hear about and some design waivers. Just by way of preview for the chair and timing, we have 4 witnesses tonight. To my right is Jamie Butler. He's a senior director of site development and design for Outback. Chris Soleil from Menlo Engineering is our site engineer. John Ray from McDonough Ray is our traffic engineer. And Matt Flynn is our professional planner. And we do have the several review letters, including the joint review letter from your planner and engineer, and prepared to speak to those. So unless there's further questions or any other housekeeping, I'm prepared to call my first witness.
Okay, that's good.
So first witness is Mr. Jamie Butler, if we could have him sworn.
Mr. Butler, do you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And Jamie, if you could just give the board the benefit of your relationship to the applicant,
And
your role in all this.
Beforehand, can you state and spell your name for the record, please?
My name is Jamie Butler, J-A-M-I-E-B-U-T-L-E-R.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You can proceed, Jamie, if you can tell us your position with the applicant and maybe just a little bit of your history with the site as well.
Yes, so as Ron said, my title is Senior Director of New Site Development and Design for Bloomin' Brands Restaurants. We're located in Tampa, Florida. And we're here tonight, and we appreciate the opportunity to be back with you. And it is deja vu all over again, and it was actually me when the restaurant was first developed in the 90s. So I've been with the company that long. I have a good history with this location. What we're here tonight to present to you is demolishing the existing building that we've enjoyed for many years, but it has been many years, and it's time to make a decision about the future of that particular facility. We plan to completely demolish that and replace it with our new prototype building. It's the same restaurant that we develop everywhere Outback builds a building. No different. It's a different style than the existing building. It's a different size. There are many reasons why we're downsizing a bit. In this environment, we've learned many things through COVID, so that's the reason you see the building that you see tonight. When we were here with you some 4 years ago now, of course, the DOT, it was stated by Ron, there was a letter of intent to sell us the property that we've been, using for parking for many years, and that came to a conclusion with a final no just about 1 year ago. So we had to drop back. We're here tonight to present you a new plan. Good news is we don't have the expense of that, right-of-way to deal with right now. We're able to now build a single restaurant and not worry about any retail space. Even though we had nothing planned for that space before, it was a little bit of a hedge against our expense at that time. So the building we're building is our new, we call it the Joey prototype. It's a little smaller. I can give you the stats on that building, but we will employ 90 to 100 people still in this area to staff that restaurant, open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner. So those shifts are 2 a day, 7 days a week.
And Jamie, do you want to walk them through a little bit of the architecture and the branding? I think that might be a good step to get them familiarized with that. Not sure if you have that electronically as part of the package. There should be a branding book. It's the colored up of the signage and facades.
And just to clarify, this is something that was previously submitted as part of the packet, not a new exhibit?
It was. It
Okay.
was submitted as, yep.
That's the sign package.
That's a sign.
Actually.
It's this one, yeah.
Yeah, we submitted, I think, some elevations and
Yeah.
some renderings.
So these don't need to be marked because they're previously.
Yep. That's actually the sign package. I don't know.
So this is the sign package that we're looking at. It does illustrate the elevations of the building. It just has some information specific to signage on it.
Gives you a good idea of the elevation, though. Gives you a good idea of the elevation, though.
I'm not sure. Was this document part of the electronic submission? You do not. You don't have that? I thought that was submitted as well. Maybe not.
If not, we can use the sign package. It has the
Then I would use the sign package, yeah. If you could go back to the sign package and maybe you could walk the board through what the sign proposal is, and then you can talk to the different facades as well.
So the sign package that we're proposing is the standard signs that we use as a base on each one of these particular buildings. As a matter of interest, the closest one to this area that we've just built would be in Horsham, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philadelphia. And what you see on this slide is exactly what is situated in that community. The signs, the Outback Steakhouse national brand sign would be placed on the front of the building and either side of the building because those all face highway frontages. The rear of the building, there is no signage. So that would be 3 signs. If you can flip, please. This is a highway side of the building. I don't know the roads here, but this is not the takeaway side. It's the other side. 30. So this is from Route 9. And this is the same side, but we're seeing a presentation of a mural of the continent of Australia with Tasmania there detached down below it. This is just what we do as a decor piece. I don't really consider it signage. It is a decor piece, and it keeps us somewhat expressive of our Australian roots, Outback Steakhouse. That's the same side of that building. That would be the signage look from Route 9. This would be the takeaway side of the building. So this is the building that faces 34, I think it is. Forgive me, I'm from Tampa, Florida. I don't know the streets. So this faces 34. There's the same Outback national brand sign with the mountain, the Outback, and the steakhouse. If you'll flip one more. Now we've added to that a small Australia mural on the back side By the way, the mural has nothing to do with, it has no verbiage saying Outback Steakhouse or anything like that. It's simply the continent of Australia with the Tasmania below. And the next slide, you'll see in the middle of the screen a small takeaway. So the 6 signs that are being described here would be the 3 National Outback signs on 3 sides of the building, an Australian decor mural on either side of the building to be 5, and then the takeaway, what we consider simply an informational sign. Takeaway is a very good part of our business, especially since COVID, and we want to let everyone know that the takeaway facility is there, but it's actually a very small, non-intrusive sign, so that would make the 6th sign.
So to clarify, is that a takeout window?
There is no takeout window.
Okay.
To describe takeaway, if you wanted to, you could come up and open the door, but there's nothing there but a small facility for staging orders, doing a credit card transaction if that's the case. But our takeaway is always call ahead, order ahead, drive up. There are some designated spaces on the site plan that are in addition to code that are dedicated solely to takeaway. We do all the business, we bring it to your car, and the entire transaction is done while you're in your car. It's a very, very, very efficient system that we have placed into this building.
Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself asking questions right away, but while it's on my mind, what would prevent a DoorDash driver or an Uber Eats driver or something from pulling up, stopping right in front of the store and getting out and causing traffic issues?
We've learned that the answer would be nothing, unfortunately. So it's not that we've gotten no complaints that the mobile services have caused any kinds of problems, either with customers or with our operation. But if you look at the takeaway on the side of the building, that's actually a small bump out from the building, and there's a door either side of a little takeaway room here. One is pretty much dedicated to the mobile order, because those people do tend to come up, park in a space. Sometimes they even leave their motor running, but we accommodate them. We have it ready. They either come in and grab it, or from our camera, we know they've come in, and we get the bag to them very quickly, and off they go.
Okay, thank you.
And, Jamie, how many of these units throughout the country or your region have you been involved with throughout the years?
Well, throughout the years with Outback, I've been involved with just the Outback Steakhouse, probably 1,000.
1,000, okay.
Right.
Okay, so you've developed quite a few of these.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
There was one comment in the review letter, and I'm sure our engineer and perhaps our plan will touch on it, but I'd like to ask you the question. What's your opinion of the proposed siting of the building vis-a-vis this property?
Well, we purposely sited the building in exactly the spot that the existing restaurant is today. And there are a couple of reasons. And from my perspective as representing Bloomin' Brands and knowing, how to position buildings, number one, this is the high part of the property. And I think the old building that was there was probably built because it's the highest part of the property. Number two, familiarity. I mean, everybody knows over the 25 years that this restaurant has existed, this is where it's situated, this is where the front door is. The back side, which there's nothing back there, is where our service facility and trash is. It's located there today. We want to keep it exactly the same now as it was then. People just become very familiar with it. There might be other testimony tonight, but from my perspective also, the property has a very unique shape. It tails in the back of the property to a little, almost like a triangle, if you will. And it's really inefficient to try to get driving aisles and parking spaces in that area. So to maximize the parking, I think our consultants, planners, and engineers have done a nice job of resituating the building and replanning the parking to get us, not only the parking we need, but probably a little more.
Thank you. I have nothing further of Mr. Butler.
Okay, that concludes your testimony?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Board professionals, any questions for Mr. Butler?
Mr. Chairman, nothing at this time.
Nina?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment, because I heard about the murals. We did have an extensive debate in the office with the zoning officer. So the murals are also treated by definition as signs, and that's why I cited it as a variance. We have other projects in the town where we have approved mural signs, so it's not that I particularly have a problem with murals. Unless they're tastefully done, I wouldn't raise an issue. But based on the definition, it's still called a sign.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, any questions or comments?
Yes, any outdoor seating?
No outdoor seating.
Okay, anyone else?
I'm sorry, can I clarify?
Absolutely, sure.
There is a little outdoor waiting area seating, but there's no outside dining.
Right, no, I was just in relationship to what's going on out there in the world, outdoor seating is kind of just that ask. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, everybody's quiet tonight. Okay. Open up the public? Yes. All right, next up, we're going to open it up to the public if they have any questions for Mr. Butler for this witness only. I'm getting kind of creeped out here. Okay, we'll close the public. Oh, what? Oh, we have one? Okay, I'm sorry. I can't see. Mr. Simonowicz is sitting up a little too high. I can't see behind him.
I noticed that I don't see the ramp like it has now. So how about handicap accessible? I can't see the picture. I don't know, is it ground level? I don't really understand.
Actually, our engineer, who's the next witness, will be happy to answer that question.
Okay, we'll have the engineer address that.
Thank you.
Address that question. Thank you so much. Okay, anyone else from the public? Okay, so we'll close the public portion. And thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Our next witness is our site engineer, Mr. Chris Zalay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Christopher Saleh, S as in Sam, Z as in Zebra, A-L-A-Y. Currently work at Menlo Engineering Associates, located at 261 Cleveland Avenue in Highland Park, New Jersey. I received a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Rhode Island in 2008. I've been a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 2013, and I've testified in front of multiple boards throughout the state, including this one.
Thank you.
And your license is still current?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris, before you get rolling, are you going to utilize your, which sheet would you like up on the screen so you and the board are on the same page, so to speak?
I actually brought two exhibits that are not previously submitted as part of the site plan package.
Okay.
That I'll just use as a paper board, if that's all right.
Okay, and in the interim, if I could I ask you to just address the public question? I know we haven't opened to the public portion yet, but the ADA?
Sure, yeah. We actually have 4 ADA spaces parked right in front of the building, and there is a ADA ramp that leads up to the front door.
Thank you.
Sure. So, Chris, why don't we get your boards marked, and then we can get you rolling. We're going to start with Exhibit A1. You can tell us what that is by title and date and mark it A1.
Sure. So Exhibit A1 is entitled the Existing Conditions Exhibit, dated April 27th, 2023. This exhibit is an aerial exhibit. It's depicting the existing conditions of the site. And it has the property boundary highlighted for everyone's reference.
Okay.
Thank you. And Exhibit A2 is entitled the Overall Plan Exhibit, dated April 27th, 2023. This is also an aerial exhibit, but with the submitted site plan shown over top of it, colorized with the landscaping turned on. So moving back to Exhibit A1, the property as it currently exists is irregularly shaped, almost like a triangle. It's designated as Block 10257, Lot 1, as shown on the tax map for the Township of Old Bridge. It's located on the northeast corner of the intersection of Route 9 with Perrine Road. And for the purposes of my description, north is actually to the right on this exhibit, so I don't confuse anybody. The property has frontage on Route 9, on Perrine Road, and also on State Highway Route 34. Overall, the property is approximately 2.06 acres, and it's located entirely within the EDO-3 Economic Development Opportunity Zone. Surrounding the property to the north, we have the Route 9 and Route 34 corridors and the off-ramp that connect the two. To the west, we have commercial properties, including a bank. To the south, we have medical offices, and to the east, mostly wooded area, followed by single-family homes. As the site as it exists today, as I'm sure the board is familiar, is occupied and currently developed with a 9,000 square foot Outback Steakhouse restaurant. There's associated parking, including 136 parking spaces. Access to the site is provided at 3 locations, one on Route 9 near the intersection with Perrine Road, kind of towards the southwest corner of the property. There's actually 4 access points on Route 34 towards the east and northeast corner of the property, and then there's 1 access point on Perrine Road that travels through the DOT parcel adjacent to the subject property. There is significant grade change on the site, or significant relatively, from about elevation 82 at the north end of the property down to elevation 70 at the south end of the property. And that's where the drainage heads and everything ties into the DOT drainage system. There are a number of existing nonconformities on the site, including the lot area, slightly undersized where 3 acres is required. We're at just over 2 acres. There's an existing nonconformity for the buffer to an arterial road, which is Route 9, for the minimum landscape area ratio, for the location of outdoor storage within a front yard, for the screening of the outdoor storage, for less than the required 25-foot landscape buffer along the perimeter of the property, and for not having a loading space or sidewalk along Route 9. And I bring all of these up because there are a lot of existing nonconformities of the site. I think it speaks to somewhat the irregular shape of the property, where it kind of pinches towards the north end, as well as having multiple frontages. It's just semi-irregular. And also that the improvements that I'll be talking about now will be improving a lot of these existing nonconformities. So moving on to Exhibit A2, and what the applicant is seeking approval for is a new, we'll be demolishing the existing Outback Steakhouse and the parking area, and providing a new 5,030 square foot Outback Steakhouse restaurant, including 116 dining seats and 71 bar seats. We'll be improving the front yard setback, where existing at 6.3 feet, we'll be improving it to 15.2 feet. The parking lot will be reconfigured to create a more efficient and formalized configuration. We'll be reducing the parking slightly down to 123 parking spaces, where 75 are required. The parking spaces will include 3 make-ready EV stations and 5 ADA parking spaces in compliance with the state statutes and ADA required ADA regulations. The spaces are sized 10 feet wide by 20 feet deep, and drive aisles are 24 foot wide, both in accordance with the Old Bridge ordinance. There will be 10 employee parking spaces at the north end of the property, and as Mr. Butler stated, again with the kind of the pinch point of the property where it's a bit of a triangle, it seems this is good use for this portion of the property where we can't have a lot of drive aisles and movement, so we just have employee spaces where we can leave the spaces at the front of the facility for customers.
So those 10 are in addition to the 123?
No, they're included, but
included
they're
in the-
just designated as employee only. There will also be 7 curbside takeaway spaces where that takeaway sign was shown. On the east side of the property facing Route 34, there will be 7 takeaway spaces with a sign saying takeaway parking only, where customers can, I think, call the restaurant or use an app to designate which space they're in, and then someone from the restaurant will bring food out to the car, and likewise used for Uber Eats delivery drivers, that sort of thing. But there's designated spaces for that. And really, the applicant's seeking to modernize, formalize this site. As stated, the previous restaurant was 9,000 square feet. It's almost double of what is current. We're making the site much more efficient, bringing it up to date. I think the old parking lot was starting to come into disrepair. There was a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of curb cuts along Route 34, which I think creates somewhat of a dangerous situation. So we're consolidating and I think making the site safer and easier to circulate and access. So the access on Route 9, which was previously, will be maintained but shifted slightly to the north, a little bit further away from the signalized intersection with Perrine Road. It'll be a right in, right out driveway. The Route 34 access point will, as I stated, be consolidated to one access point near the midpoint of the property frontage on Route 34. That'll be a right out only and full access into the property. And those 2 access points will be under review from the DEP. We have an application into the DOT, I think I said, to the DOT. We've had a couple revisions already with them, so we're under review to receive our DOT permits. And the Perrine Road access point will be abandoned, as that would require access through the DOT parcel, and the DOT has made us aware that they no longer want us using their parcel, and they'll be using it for their own purposes in the future. So again, sidewalk and ADA access. We're providing sidewalk along the south and east side of the building, which is the building frontages where you can access the front of the restaurant and the takeaway window. 4 ADA spaces will be located there. There's a switchback ramp that will take you to the main entrance of the building. And we've also provided sidewalk along Route 9 from the intersection of Perrine Road and Route 9 that will allow pedestrians to walk up and enter the facility. And that was per a comment from one of the township review letters. There's a trash enclosure that previously was located at the rear of the restaurant. On the north end, we're maintaining that location. It is in the front yard, which is an existing nonconformity, and we're maintaining that same location, but even though it's the front yard, it feels like it's the back of the site, it's the back of the restaurant. We'll be enclosing that dumpster enclosure with an 8-foot-high masonry block wall, which again, I think a 6-foot-high fence is required by this ordinance, and an 8-foot-high wall is what we are seeking approval for. And that's somewhat of a Outback Steakhouse standard that they like to use. Moving on to signage, we're proposing 2 freestanding signs, one located at on the south side of the driveway access point on Route 9, and one located on the south side of the access point on Route 34. Both of these signs are set back a minimum of 10 feet from the property line in accordance with the ordinance, and they're sized at 35 square feet and 28 square feet, which are less than the required or permitted sign area of 40 square feet. And I think you heard plenty of testimony regarding the facade signs, but we're proposing 6 facade signs where 4 are permitted, so that requires a variance. And then there's a variance, only 1 facade sign is permitted per facade. So on the west facade, we're seeking approval for 2 signs, and on the east facade, we're seeking approval for 3 signs. And yeah, again, just to touch on the variances, we're improving a number of the existing nonconformities, as I previously stated. We're improving the minimum landscape area ratio. Previously, it was 0.18. We're improving it to 0.21. It's still a variance, but we're improving the condition. The minimum front yard setback, as I stated, we're improving. The maximum front yard setback from Perrine Road, we're improving slightly. The sidewalk along the frontage, which is required, there was none previously along Route 9. Now we're providing sidewalk, I think where it makes sense to provide sidewalk, where we can access it from existing crosswalks and a curb ramp at that intersection, providing access for pedestrians to the facility. And one more is that for commercial properties in this zone, you required a 12-foot wide sidewalk in front of any commercial property. For a restaurant of this nature, it's not necessarily standard. So the front patio area that's under a canopy is 9 feet wide, but I think with a national brand, this is their standard package, and I think it's plenty of room and makes sense for a restaurant facility where the 12-foot wide maybe would make more sense for a commercial property, a strip mall, retail center, something of that nature. And there is one waiver, one more variance is for no loading spaces. That's the restaurant functions today with no loading spaces. Trucks will be entering the site during off hours, making deliveries, food deliveries. We've run truck movements and submitted them. We have a traffic engineer who can touch on it a little bit more, but we don't feel that there will be any concern with trucks being able to unload during off hours and not interfering or creating any sort of dangerous situation. And one waiver was for a 10-foot wide landscape strip between the right-of-way and parking. Again, this is a waiver that's required, but we're actually improving the situation where previously some of the parking encroached over the property line. We're improving that. We're providing a 4.5-foot buffer between the property line and the parking area. Moving on to stormwater management, because we are disturbing more than an acre of land, we trigger the stormwater management regulations, but we are actually reducing impervious coverage on site. So by way of reducing impervious coverage, we're meeting all requirements for stormwater quantity, quality, and recharge. We're maintaining the existing drainage pattern. As I stated earlier, the site flows from north to south. We're providing some inlets and underground pipes that will connect collect overland runoff, convey it to the existing DOT system as it does today. So we're not changing the drainage pattern, which is always a goal of the stormwater management design. And all other utilities, sanitary, gas, water, electric, will be removing the existing services, capping them or eliminating them in accordance with the OBM UA standards, and we'll be providing all new services to the facility. Moving on to landscaping, we did a tree inventory of the site and put together tree replacement calculations. We're required 18 replacement trees and have met that standard. We're actually providing 39 shade trees, 25 evergreen trees, 22 flowering trees, 571 shrubs, and 368 ground cover. And I think, as you can see on the exhibit, we have this dispersed throughout the site. Provide a nice new clean design for the site. Really beautifies it and brings some nice aesthetics with the flowering trees. There are 4 heritage trees as stated in the Open Space or Shade Tree Commission review letter, and we were able to hire an arborist to visit the site and analyze those trees. In accordance with the ordinance, and the arborist discovered that 3 of the trees are actually sick or in not good condition, infested with either disease or insects, and actually pose a danger risk. So those trees actually hold no value. I guess the purpose of the arborist and the heritage tree requirement is to, if you must remove heritage trees, there's a value associated with them that the applicant must either make a contribution or replace them with a number of other trees. Since the arborist determined that 3 of the trees really hold no value due to their dangerous current condition and a disease, that one of them does seem to be healthy, and there will be a contribution that will be made by the applicant for the removal of that one heritage tree. And moving on to lighting. The applicant's proposing to light the facility in a safe and adequate manner, providing 12 pole-mounted LED light fixtures mounted at 17.5 feet. The light fixtures meet a minimum of 1.1 foot candle, an average of 3.81, and an average to minimum uniformity ratio of 3.46 to 1. And these are all in compliance with the township ordinance. And I think that sums up my testimony.
One question, Chris, did you have an opportunity to study the area of the proposed facade signs and whether or not they comply with the ordinance standard?
Yes, so the area complies with the ordinance standard. Each facade is permitted, up to 15% of the facade area is permitted in signage, and our submitted sign package shows the permitted area and then our proposed area, and the cumulative area of the signs meets that standard for each facade and in total.
Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Saleh.
Okay. Okay, I'll open it up to our board professionals.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one question. Like in the beginning, did we talk about the DOT right away? Were you going to reestablish vegetation? Were you going to remove the improvements that were on there already? Was there some sort of agreement that you came upon with DOT that they were requiring you to do on that area? I missed it in the beginning.
They just no longer permitted us use of their site, and they'll be using it to their own purpose, but because it's not our site, we're not permitted to make any changes to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there was a review memo that Vina and myself had written, originally dated February 22nd, 2023. The applicant was then carried to this meeting. So it gave them an opportunity to address most of our comments in that time frame. So we had gotten revised plans, revised reports, and we had updated that report to the date of April 25th, 2023. So a lot of the comments got eliminated, which is nice to see, and it's nice to, actually, hear testimony without really having some sort of comment back. But there were three things that stood out. One was the DOT right away, and it's a shame that we're gonna put up curb then to differentiate your parking versus where their pavement is.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we can only do what we can do with our site. We've designed it in a way that we're not impacting their site, and their site's not impacting our site, but what they're going to do with their property is kind of up to them.
Okay, but from what I remember, that line or that edge of your parking lot will be delineated with curbing and then that landscaping strip.
Correct.
Okay. The second concern I had was that easement area, that 80-foot wide easement area that's dedicated to, and it's the Midtown Water Company, and that for me baffled me because I never heard of that. It actually turns out to be a subsidiary of the Brunetti organization, and they had bought this, easement right like years ago, but nothing's in it. So I had called the Brunetti organization to see if they had any, sort of skin in this game. And Jerry Primavera had nothing to say on this application. And I looked in any of the deeds that I could find to see if there was any, further explanation of this easement area that would sort of restrict any of the activities proposed tonight, and there was none. So I feel confident to say that any of the improvements that are there that they're proposing now are similar to what's there now today. It's just going to be newer. So I feel confident in that. That's not an issue. There was one more. Oh, then, what I saw, and I think this is perfect timing, there's a Route 34 pavement rehabilitation project from this limit where Route 9 meets 34, all the way south to Colts Neck. And what a perfect opportunity for Outback, because NJDOT is actually taking the culvert that sort of passes the southeasterly corner of their project, where they were proposing some improvements along that side, and they're filling it in. So it actually is good timing for this applicant and their engineer to coordinate with DOT on the proposed improvements that relate to 34 in relation to their site, and then they also saw that there was some conflict in the design that they're working out. So we look forward to getting that DOT permit, But those were really the three concerns I had on this project, and I think we're pretty close to addressing all of them at this point, at least two of the three until we get the DOT permit. So I don't have any further comments other than that.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Vina?
I don't have any comments because most of our comments were addressed. Like the engineer has testified, although there are numerous variances required, most of the situation, the variances are alleviating, they are reducing, which is a good thing. I see a huge improvement in the site. So I really don't have any comments. There was one comment that I had added about the EV charging station, because as the board knows, I have been requiring, or I have been pushing applicants to do an EV charging station. What I realize is you have make-ready spaces, which means you have 3 spaces that will have electric conduits or the infrastructure ready to put in a station, but you're not proposing any station. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. And as you may recall, board members, we were one of the first few towns to adopt an EV charging station ordinance. And later on, the state came up with their state mandate requirement. Our ordinance is much more stringent than the state's requirement. The applicant is complying with the state requirement, which is law now. So I would support the variance from our township's ordinance. So I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vina. Okay, anybody from the board?
I'm not sure if you would be the one to answer it or the traffic person, but. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so there's going to be no access from 34. If you're going, no, from Pine Road. So you have to go on 30. If you're going to make a left turn, if you're going toward Route 9.
If you're going north.
And toward 30, yeah. How, you can't make a left turn there. I mean, you've got oncoming traffic coming off of 9. Yeah. So you have to go all the way to Pine Road and then make a right turn and come in off of 9?
If I may leave that for the traffic engineer, but I mean, if you're traveling south on Route 34, you can either enter that way.
Yeah, but if you're going north on 34, how do you get in?
Right. Yeah, we have full access from Route 34 into the site, so you can make a left into the site.
Yeah, I think what Barbara is saying.
It's really dangerous.
Having lived here for years.
You've got
traffic that
ongoing
comes
traffic.
off
You
of
can't
Route
just
9
stop there and wait for.
Makes it difficult. It's not, I mean, it's not impossible, but it makes it difficult.
Okay.
You can't get off of Pine right near Route 9 there? Where does the state property? Is it that sort of V thing?
So the state property is this lower off the southeast
All the
corner.
way up to 9?
Right, it goes from 34 up to kind of like the closer to Route 9 there. So we do have some of our property that's fronting on Perrine Road, but it would be too close to the intersection to provide access.
I don't know.
And I think once you're there, you could really just take a right onto Route 9 and then enter the site that way.
Yeah, so you'd have to take Pine to 9. I mean, you really are not going to be able to do.
I guess if you're coming up north on Route 34, I think if there's a way you can get to Perrine Road, right, then you can access it that way. And if it's, you know, if you're local and live here and understand that it's a little more dangerous to make the left on Route 34, a little more difficult, then you can make that right.
It's not much better of an option going to the intersection and making a right. That's a rough intersection, too.
Yeah.
Chairman Marucci.
Yes, sir.
Being on the board, and we've reviewed this years ago, I know, or correct me if I'm wrong, we had concerns about the exiting onto Route 9. That was the board had mentioned that, being that it's so constricted over there and there's the bridge, and that was a concern. Some of our board members may have been here at the time. That was a concern. And that is something that you're waiting on for the DOT, and it's probably the traffic engineers.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think with the traffic signal there, it does provide that window if you're making a right onto Route 9. And we did eliminate the left turn out onto Route 34, which...
On the 9 one, it was the traffic coming from Perrine Road going north, tractor trailers coming out of there, dump trucks and so on. So That was the concern of the board in the last time we were here. So, and I think it was based upon DOT approval at that point in time.
And it will be again.
Thank you.
So I was on the board in 2019 when this originally came in front of the planning board. To be quite honest, if you read the testimony, I wasn't a fan of the previous design. I didn't like the second building. I didn't think it worked. So I'm happy to see that there's a single building on the property. Entering, exiting this property is difficult. You know, Perrine is key. The state took that away from you. So, you know, Mayor Cannon, you know, expressed her concerns about the left, you know, heading north. I agree with her. You know, if I'm taking my family there, I'm going to take Perrine to 9 and get in. You know, I think that's safer. It's just difficult, you know. Off that topic. What's that?
I don't want to cut you off, but do you think if the entrance was moved further south, would it make it any safer?
I think the traffic expert will probably tell you that's probably the ideal spot for it because they have to maintain the distances between the intersections, but yeah, let him tell us that.
It's probably safer now, though, because there's the 2 entrances and the
oh,
one
this
that's
is
further up.
definitely safer.
There was actually four depressed curbs along
Yeah.
Route 34.
Yeah,
Now there's one.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people enter in off Perrine now, which is going to be removed by the state. So it's a difficult situation. I wouldn't ever make that 34 North make the left in. It's not safe. Route 9 is 55 speed limit. I don't think that's always accurate. People are flying off onto 34, so they're exiting Route 9 from the fast lane, so they're at top speed when they're getting onto 34. There's not a lot of room there. Different item. The dumpsters. They're in the top corner next to the building, right? Is that the best location for them? Because if you pull a garbage truck in, now you're turning, are they able to like do a K-turn out to leave, or do they have to back all the way into the main body of the parking lot?
No, they'll be able to make that maneuver. I mean, we can provide a truck movement plan that shows that maneuver, but yeah, the idea is that, you know, depending on what type of truck is used, either a side load, back load, front load, you know, I think that's essentially where the dumpsters are located today. So they've been doing the kind of the same movement for years.
Yeah, it's just now you have new islands and stuff with new curbing, so it might just be a little bit more difficult than it was in the past.
Yeah, one of the reasons, you know, we like the masonry enclosure. It really protects everything. It'll keep it looking nice for a long time.
All right, thank you.
How much space is behind the building to get around it on the Route 9 side, on the west side of the building?
Between the building and the property line, 15 feet.
15 feet. Okay. Yeah, that's my question. Is it?
I'm sorry.
It's grass.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I do. Just a suggestion. I mean, the south end corner of that property where the concern is of the people going north on Route 34 to make the left into the property. It's just an ask. I mean, they're kind of corny, but would it be turn here for Outback? If you could put a sign on that south corner so they will turn on Perrine?
Like a directional sign?
Yeah, you know, like, because that is a concern. Everybody's going, if you're going north on 34, the cars coming off Route 9 are doing 50, 60 miles an hour. So to turn a left into your property is hazardous. If it's just, you know, a sign, a two-legged sign, Outback turn here onto Perrine, and then they go out to 9 and turn in on off 9.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Be up to, I guess, Mr. Butler and our traffic.
Look at it, and our next witness is our traffic engineer, so he might have some ideas on that.
You know, it'll grab their attention there to turn onto Perrine, as opposed to the head-on turning left into the property.
My only concern with that would be then they'd get onto Perrine and they wouldn't see an entrance on Perrine, and it may confuse them, and then they'd be banging K-turns to get back around. they may not know to go all the way out to 9 to take that entrance. It's a tough spot, no matter how you look at it.
Route 9 entrance, use Route 9 entrance.
I have one more question, if nobody else. The EV 3 make-ready spots, so are they dual port, so you could potentially have 6 chargers, or are they?
No, just
it would
3
be
chargers.
3 chargers, okay.
And that's, yeah, per the statute.
Okay, and a question I have, just for the record, with the two heritage trees, our arborist is on board with that?
Well, we have an arborist that prepared a report that we'll be submitting to the Shade Tree Commission for
so
review.
Ours has not reviewed it yet.
I don't believe so, because I think we just got this in the last couple of weeks.
Okay,
But
do
he's
you
a
have any information
professional arborist that I believe has worked in this town before.
Okay. Okay.
The level 2 charger has 2 positions.
That has the 2. Right, yeah, so most of the stations have 2 charge. It's just 3 spaces total, so one of them will have 2 and the other one.
Each level 2 has 2 positions for charging.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think there's a confusion. I believe you're putting the electric conduit, you're not putting the charging station.
Right, we're not even
correct?
putting the station, it's just
Well,
the,
this question was relative to
Oh,
how
okay.
many positions would you get from each. So 3 locations would equal 6 chargers
Right.
if you use the level 2 charger.
yeah, I know there's a lot of options out there, so if they were all level 2, I think there's some that are less than level 2 and some only have 1 charger.
Okay, any other questions from the board members? Okay, I'll open up to the public. No more? Okay, I'll open it up to the public if, come on up, sir.
And this is not particularly just about Outback, but I'm just here sitting in on a meeting.
All right, can you please state your name?
Oh, Ron Simone. You need my address too?
Sure.
98 Cottrell Road. So just listening to the meeting, like what my questions are arising here is saying that once you fix one property, if you're not upgrading everything all around it, okay, if you move dirt from one spot, it has to go somewhere else. The elevations may, and again, this is nothing about Outback, I'm just asking a question in general. If you're raising elevations in one spot or lowering elevations in another spot, adding dirt somewhere, not taking dirt away from somewhere else, we already have so many water issues over here in this area. Again, if you upgrade one property and say you made one property all concrete, the water is running faster somewhere else. If the other properties around it are not upgraded too, then that person, whoever is upgrading, is pushing their stuff out to people that aren't upgraded.
I'll let the witness address that, but I know he spoke to the fact that with their stormwater management plan, it's actually going to be better than it is now.
Right. No, and then what I'm saying is too, like, and these are just my questions I have. And then on top of it, the traffic situation. I mean, whenever you do some kind of building or something like that, you're blocking roads, trucks are coming in. We already have, again, so many trucks coming down Cottrell Road, so many trucks down 34. We already have traffic jams out the wazoo. So what are we doing if we're not upgrading everything around each one of these spots, not just Outback? We're talking about the big building they're building off of Cottrell and 34. We're talking about near your house. We're talking, if you're not upgrading everything around that, then you're just causing more traffic. You're just causing more problems for everybody else who is not upgrading. That's all I had to say.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, anyone else from the public? Okay, we'll close the public portion for this witness, and Mr. Shimanowicz, you can call your next
Thank you,
witness.
Mr. Chairman. Next
Thank you.
witness is our traffic engineer, Mr. John Ray.
State and spell your name.
John Ray, R-E-A.
And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
John, if you could give the benefit of your qualifications, I think you've been before this board maybe once or twice.
I have, but I think I do see some new faces. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My field of specialty is traffic engineering. I have a total of 48 years' experience in the traffic engineering field. an undergraduate degree in civil engineering from NJIT, and a master's degree in transportation engineering from NYU. And I've been doing consulting work in the state of New Jersey for the last 38 years, and I'm familiar with the site.
Is that it?
I've been a patron for a long time here, too, since it opened. I'm sorry they're taking away the existing restaurant because nobody knew they had a second bar in the back that you could always go sit down when there was an hour wait.
Yeah.
And he's not putting that back.
John, there were some specific questions which we'll get to, but before we get there, if you could just give the board a little bit of the status where we're at, particularly with NJDOT. I think there was also 1 or 2 traffic comments in the review letter.
Yes, and we did do a traffic impact analysis for the project, but since there's been a focus on the access to and from the property, I'll start with that particular item. We've submitted the plans as you've seen them on the boards tonight to the NJDOT. We are reasonably certain that the DOT will approve this access configuration. Route 9 will be a right-in, right-out only. Route 34 will be a right-in, left-in, but the left turns out will be restricted. We know from the last meeting that we had with the township in 2019 that the left turn out onto Route 34 was problematic. We agree with you, DOT agrees, and we're giving up the left turn out. And that's really an easy movement to give up because that movement can be replicated by just making the right on Route 9 North, and you get to the same place you're going to be anyway. So that's no issue whatsoever.
Is there any design in that exit that prevents someone from making a left turn? Because you know the Walmart, everybody makes
Yes,
that
there's a
left turn.
channelized island on Route 34. There is a channelized island. The DOT has asked for that, and it should pretty much restrict people from making the left turn out onto Route 34. And again, there's no benefit for people to do that because they can just go to the Route 9 exit and they get to the same place eventually anyway, and that's a safer movement to make. So we concur and we agree with the board, with the town's professionals on the left turn out. With respect to the left turn in, the DOT has given us every indication that they will approve it, and for good reason in my estimation. It's properly located with respect to the site plan, lining up with the access and circulation aisle that goes into the property. The site distance at that location is good. You can see the traffic is moving fast, coming down Route 9, bearing to the left to go onto Route 34, but you've got good sight distance there. It meets the standards that we need for the left turn in. There is a shoulder to bypass a left turning vehicle going into the site. So the DOT has given us every indication that they will approve the Route 34 access as we've designed it. As Mr. Zalay indicated, there are currently multiple curb cuts along the Route 34 frontage. We're closing them all. We're replacing them with one properly designed, properly located curb cut. And I guess I would just respectfully ask the board that we let the DOT make the judgment call as to whether or not the left turn in can be permitted. I do agree with the chairman. It could be a little bit confusing if we don't have that left turn in from northbound Route 34 and people are forced to make the left onto Perrine, then they see that there's no access from Perrine anymore, which we used to have, but now the DOT has cut that off. They're going to wonder, what did I just do? How do I get into the property? And they're going to have to wait in the queue at the traffic signal, make a right turn to come into the Route 9 access. I would not be, offering the testimony on the safety of the left turn in on northbound Route 34 if I didn't think it was safe. The sight distance is good. I do believe the DOT will permit it. They've seen these plans. We've already made a resubmission to the DOT. Mr. Zalay can cover some of those items. They're basically routine things that the DOT has asked for, and I do believe they will approve the access design as it's been proffered to them. With respect to the traffic study, I know the board has heard traffic engineers testify about levels of service. And because the only movements that are going to be permitted exiting the site are the right turn out onto Route 9 and the right turn onto southbound Route 34, those movements will operate at level of service C during peak hours. So the delay associated with the exiting movements, which will only be right turns, will be moderate and be at acceptable levels and within acceptable traffic engineering parameters. With respect to the parking, we have 123 parking spaces, if I'm not mistaken. 75 are required under your ordinance. As board members probably know, this is a very, very popular restaurant. I think Mr. Butler indicated to me that it's one of the busiest restaurants in the system that he's familiar with, and he's familiar with about 1,000 of these sites. So I think we'd like to have the extra parking. We're also going to have some employee parking to the rear of the building on the north side. There needs to be some parking for the takeaway orders. And again, like I've indicated, we know this is a busy site, and so we're able to fit 123 properly sized 10 by 20 foot stalls to support the restaurant. So on balance, the plans have been prepared, in my estimation, to provide for safe and efficient access to and from the property. The right turn exit movements will operate at a good level of service. And overall, I think the applicant has done, from a traffic perspective, done a very good job of trying to upgrade the property, of course, upgrade the building, but also upgrade the access and work with what we've been left with since we don't have the Perrine Road access to serve the property anymore. And I do think it will operate safely and efficiently if it's approved as the plan is being offered to you.
Thank you, John. One quick question for you. In the review letter, I believe it's section 5D, there was a request to clarify the growth rate, 1% versus 5%.
Okay, well, what happened was, because we started this project a couple of years ago, we projected traffic volumes to a design year of 2025, and I think one of the items is maybe we should go to 2027, 2 additional years in the future. We will do that. We'll make the changes to the traffic study. It's my expectation that even adding 2 years of additional growth will not change the levels of service, but we can modify the traffic study to include the 2 extra years of growth.
Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Ray.
Okay, Nicole or Vina, do you have anything for Mr. Ray?
The only thing I had is there was one comment, 5B, that I had asked that the turning templates be extended to the trash enclosures, just what Mr. Casey had said
Okay.
before. We just want to make sure that the truck movements for the trash enclosures should.
Mr. Zalay has indicated he will take care of that and do that.
Okay, Vina, anything?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, I have one comment kind of piggybacking on what Kevin said before about some signage. And the more I was, my wheels were turning a little bit. Is there any way for signage when traffic is coming Route 9 onto 34 traveling south to alert them to the driveway opening? You know, something similar to a hidden driveway sign or something that says, you know, slow down, restaurant access, or some type of sign that would give.
There is a sign that's in the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices that just indicates that there's a driveway coming up. And we can, as long as the DOT will permit it, the sign will probably have to be in the DOT right away. We can add that sign.
Okay, because that may be
It's
helpful.
a driveway ahead sign. It doesn't actually have the words that say driveway ahead, but you see it's a diagrammatic sign showing that there's a driveway connection coming up.
Okay, okay. That may help.
Okay, we can add that.
Okay, any of the board members have any comments?
I have a question. So if I have to travel south on 9, I have to come out from Route 34, make a right, and then go to the light and make a left.
No, if you're coming south on Route 9 and you want to get into the property,
I want to exit the restaurant and I want to go south on 9.
Then you would make a right on Route 34, go to Perrine Road, make another right. Yes, correct. I had it mixed up. I thought you were talking about coming into the property.
So you're coming out, corner.
And then get into the left turn lane at Perrine Road.
Okay, anyone else?
Uh, Uh, I have a question.
Mr. Lauer?
Mr. Yes, sir. Ray, is there a reason, that exit onto Route 34, where it looks like it's a little island?
Yes.
Is that painted on, or is that curb?
No, that's a raised curb, if I'm not mistaken, right, Chris? The island on Route 34 is I don't know if it's mountable or not, but I do believe it's a curbed island. It's not paint.
It's just not painted, okay.
It would have to be if it's preventing the left turn.
Yes.
Correct? Yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Lauer. Anybody else? Okay, so with that,
Thank
I
you.
will, we have to open it up to the public.
Oh, yeah, you have to stay here for a minute.
So any questions from the public for Mr. Ray, for this witness? Okay, so I'll close down the public portion, and then Mr. Shimanowitz, you're...
All
Final witness?
Final witness is our planner to speak to the variances. We have Mr. Matt Flynn.
State your name and spell, please.
Matthew Flynn, F-L-Y-N-N.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And Matt, if you could give the board the benefit of your qualifications.
Sure. I have my master's degree in planning and public policy from Rutgers University. I have my professional planner's license in the state of New Jersey, as well as my AICP, which is the national license for planners. And I've testified before dozens of boards across the state. This is my first time here, but I have been before a couple of boards in Middlesex County.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you. You heard the testimony tonight regarding the listing of the variances. I think they're pretty understandable to the board. The board's been through this twice now, but we do need the planning justification for those variances.
Sure. So I'm going to list through the variances quickly. They're all sea level relief. We are permitted use in the EDO3 zone, so we're not requesting any D relief for use, height, or FAR. First, landscape area ratio 0.21 is proposed. We need 0.4. It's an improvement over existing of 0.18. Front setback to Route 9, we're proposing 15.2 feet as opposed to 35 feet. Again, that's an improvement over existing of 6.3 feet. Maximum front setback to Perrine, we're proposing 273.3 feet. 50 feet is the maximum permitted. Again, that's a maximum and not a minimum. Outdoor storage in the front yard, that's an existing condition, and it's technically the front yard, but again, it is behind the building, so it's not going to appear as such. Outdoor storage fence height, 8 feet versus 6 feet. We heard that that's typical for Outback Steakhouse. Landscape buffer, that's an existing non-conforming condition, and we are actually improving that. Whereas right now we have parking right up to the property lines, and we are providing some landscaping that's not there today. Sidewalks along the frontage and along front access to the building, we're not proposing. Same. Total number of facade signs, we're proposing 6, and we're only allowed 4 in total. 2 of those include the Australia map decor sign, which is not an advertising sign, it's not a brand recognition sign. And the other one is a takeaway sign, which is informational. So if you deduct those, we are at 4, but as Vina mentioned, we are technically counting that as signage. And as our engineer testified, the overall signage square footage is compliant for both the whole building and for each individual facade. Number of facade signs per each wall. We're proposing 3 on the front facade, whereas we're only allowed 1. And again, 2 of those are the Australia map and the takeaway sign. Buffering or parking in the buffer, we are proposing both, which is an existing condition. That was also approved back in that 2019 approval. 2 variances for EV charging stations, which we heard from our engineer. And then loading spaces, we're not proposing any loading. We're required to have 1 loading space. Back in 2019, we were actually required to have 2 loading spaces because we had that additional building, and we were approved for 0 back then. So this is actually an improvement over that approved condition. All of which can be justified by both the C2 balancing test as well as the C1 hardship test. In terms of C2 balancing, all of the positives, all the benefits of the application as a whole substantially outweigh any detriments. In this case, we are getting new architecture, site upgrades, modernization of the site, better definition of the parking situation, better safety, better convenience. We are enhancing an established use that's been here for a long time. So we do get that element of business retention. Again, it is a permitted use that's compatible with the area. And just to cite that 2019 approval, which recognized that the buffer and the setbacks are consistent with the area. So there is compatibility from a layout perspective. All of the above promote purposes of the municipal land use law, including Purpose A, promotion of the general welfare. Purpose G, variety of uses in appropriate locations. Purpose I, desirable visual environment. And Purpose M, efficient use of land. The flip side to that is the negative criteria, no substantial detriment to the public or to the zone plan. This isn't going to be any more overpowering or obtrusive than what's there today. It's actually a smaller building, and it's proposed in the same general location. We heard from our traffic expert and our engineer that the proposed layout is the best option that we had available given the unique conditions of the property. Building height and FAR are both substantially smaller than what's permitted. So again, we do have a building that's not going to be overpowering. We're proposing more landscaping than what's existing, as well as less impervious than existing. And we heard that there will be no adverse impacts to stormwater. And of course, that safety and efficiency, I think the board, that was the main concern tonight, and I think that's been adequately addressed at this point. In terms of impacts to the zone plan, the purpose of the zone is to accommodate and stimulating economic growth by permitting an assortment of businesses catering to neighborhood residential uses. And I think that this is going to be right in line with that zone intent. Finally, the C1 hardship test as it relates to an irregularly shaped lot. The layout that we're proposing is a factor of that unique characteristic, the unique shape and location of the property. And the 2019 approval, again, recognized that the setback and buffer relief is a result of having 3 frontages. I would also argue that it's also that those 3 frontages also result in that front yard storage area variance. So I think that both the C1 test and the C2 test are met here. The applicant only needs to meet one of those, and I think in this case we meet both. Finally, we are requesting 1 design waiver for the landscaping strip between the right-of-way and the parking lot. We're proposing 4.5 feet, and 10 feet is what is required. 0 feet is out there today, so it's an improvement over existing. And the rationale for the design waiver is whether strict or literal enforcement of that requirement would serve any practical planning purpose. And I think that that test is met here. Again, it's an improvement over existing. And again, it's a function of the unique conditions of the property. So all said, I think this is a positive redevelopment of the site. All of the C relief, or most of the C relief, is an improvement over existing or the 2019 approval. We have consistency with what's out there today and vastly improving that in terms of safety and efficiency. So with that, I'll close and open myself up to questions.
Thank you, Matt. All right, thank you. Tina?
I concur with the planning testimony. I have no questions.
Okay. Cole, anything?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. I thought you left. You were leaning back. Hiding. Anybody on the board, any questions or comments?
So I have a couple questions, but I don't think they pertain to you. I'm just, going through all this. We'd mentioned previously that the Perrine Road property that the state wants back, you're going to leave that the way it is, correct?
Yes.
So the curb cut for the old driveway, it looks like your new curbing's going to go across there. Are you going to, replace the state curb to prevent people from pulling in?
It's not our property. It's going to be maintained as it is, and also the DOT plans to use that property, so that curb cut actually still allows them access to their property.
Okay.
Isn't that going to be confusing?
My concern is now, because like you said, one of the busiest Outbacks, is there like a sign or something that you could put there so somebody doesn't turn in and now they have to back out because they went in the wrong way?
They would have room to turn around. They would still have room. The parking lot is still there. They would have room to turn around. They wouldn't have to back out onto Perrine Road.
Okay.
There's no way to put a barrier up across that curb cut so they can't turn in?
It's the DOT property, and again, I think they plan on having access to it, and that's their access point.
Maybe when you guys go for the final approval, just mention that to them, because I could see that potentially being an issue, safety issue. Somebody comes in, now they hit your curb, if they enter fast, so.
Or if you have 2 cars following each other going to the restaurant.
Yeah, it's just, trying to think of anything that might happen. Next subject. The Outback worked with the town in the past. We posted no commuter parking in this parking lot. Is there any plans for new no commuter parking signs?
We don't have any shown, but I guess we'll consider it.
I mean, it's benefiting you guys. People are taking your parking spots, and then they call the town and say, we have 20 commuters there. So that's why we worked with you guys to install those in the past. So you might want to just consider adding 1 or 2 along the outer edge.
No objection. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Well, not more. They're going to redo the whole parking lot. We just want to make sure they go back in. Yeah, that's just a suggestion.
Good suggestion.
That's all I have.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
the current cars that park, there are cars that park there. Is that on the New Jersey New Jersey property? It looks like commuters because they're parked right near the edge.
If they're parked near the edge along Perrine Road, it would be on the
No,
DOT.
not, they're in on the property.
Right.
But is that going to remain like that? So you're going to, you don't know whether they're going to allow commuter parking there?
No, I mean, they don't intend to allow commuter parking. If there are commuters there, they're doing it illegally, so.
Well,
I
they
guess-
must have in the past because they were always there.
Yeah, well, somebody has to enforce that. Who's going to police it, you know?
Yeah, well, the property owner would contact the police department. There is currently no commuter parking, it's.
No, I know, but
yeah.
I think it is. There are
take it.
people.
I'm sure they are, and the problem is that they open up later in the day, so
Yeah,
people
right.
park there early, but
Right.
they're still utilizing that spot until they
Right.
come back.
Yeah.
So that's why they want to prohibit commuter parking.
Yeah,
The
no,
first
I-
couple of toes, and that's going to
Yeah,
stop.
and, we definitely
Yeah.
have signs there for that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea.
Okay, anyone else from the board? Okay, if nothing else from the board, I'd like to open up to the public for any questions for Mr. Flynn, for this witness. Okay, I'll close the public portion. And does that complete, that completes Mr. Flynn's testimony?
Yeah.
Whoa, good catch.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that completes our presentation tonight.
Okay, so do you have any summation or anything else you'd like to say?
I think we've given a pretty good picture to the board. The board knows the site real well. I think it's going to be a great addition to the town of Old Bridge. It's even better than what you've got now, so what could be bad?
And better than what was proposed prior.
And better than what was
Yeah,
proposed
I
in
mean,
19.
I know there were several board members when we first heard this 4 years ago that were totally against the secondary building and a lot of what was proposed, although it did garner a vote, an approval. But, just seeing this application, I think it's, with the exception of some of the traffic issues, some of the parking lot issues, I think it's an overall better plan.
So do we.
Okay, so if there's nothing else from the board professional, Mr. Lauer?
Could you tell me how long you anticipate to be out of business?
Yeah, I'm going to turn that to Mr. Butler. He'd be the appropriate one to respond to that question. The timing of closing and construction and reopening.
So the timing of closing will be when we can get our final permits and the ground, is ready for us to do our work. We're hoping to be under construction here, demolishing the existing building and then prepping for the new building, spring of next year. We'll probably be closed with the demo involved for 7 to 8 months, depending on supply chain issues at that time, which have been a bit of a challenge, as you know. We'd like to make that period as brief as possible. If I might continue with that, because anticipating from the 2019 meeting, there might be a question about employees. We will make every effort, and we will place all our employees at our neighboring restaurants in the area, even if they're different brands. I don't want to overstep the answer to your question, but I think that might have been forthcoming.
Thank you.
Okay, if there is nothing else, I open and close the public. I'm trying to get my
We
place.
got to do with public comment at the end.
we have to.
Yeah, we did the public questioning of
Yes,
witnesses.
and you're going to summarize that? Yeah, okay. Okay, so we're going to open it up to the public for any final comments on the overall application. Okay, and we will close that portion. And then I will ask Mr. Sordillo to summarize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a vote in favor of this application would be granting preliminary and final site plan approval with the various variances that were identified by the planner and the engineer, as well as the design waiver. There were, in addition to the standard conditions that we apply, that are applicable to all board approvals, including compliance with the board's professional reports, I had a number of conditions identified. One being with regard to the heritage trees, that the applicant will make a contribution for the healthy heritage tree that is determined by the arborist, professional arborist, but in connection with that, I understand that the arborist report will be submitted to the township and subject to the township's professionals' review. That the applicant agrees to update the traffic study to add 2 years of growth to 2027, which also will be submitted to the township, and that they will provide a turning radius for the trash enclosure to the Township Engineering Department, and lastly, that that they will work with the DOT in determining whether they can put some appropriate signage on Route 34 to warn of the driveway access approaching. And that is the conditions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I agree. Okay, so with Mr. Sordillo's summation and comments, we're going to put it to a vote now. So I'd ask for a motion.
I'll move it. I just want to say that I'm really glad that Outback's staying here. You've really always been a real plus, I think, for our town in participating in Old Bridge Day, and it's just a really, great restaurant. I just have concerns about getting in that way, but I'll figure out some way to get in there. But anyway, we're glad you choose to stay in our town. And
Okay.
I'm voting yes.
Moved by Mrs. Cannon, and a second?
I'll second.
By Mr. Petty.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's a great upgrade to the township.
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Chairman Rucci?
Yes, and I also agree. Like I stated earlier, it's an upgrade from the last application, and I think we're happy to have the positive upgrades.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, and then before we adjourn, we have to open it up again one final time to the public for any comments. Okay, and I'll close it to the public and then ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman,
What?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring to the board attention that the municipality has a DEP permit that we have to comply with every year. As part of that DEP permit for stormwater, the board members of this board, our zoning board and our township council are required to take just a brief view of a 45-minute training seminar video.
Everybody get that
DEP
email?
puts out.
Okay.
I just asked that if you want to do it, if you could do it within the next 30 days, and then if you could send an email back to us, and it would be to, I believe, Danny, just to say, hey, I took it, and then that's all we need as confirmation.
And how do they give us confirmation? I mean, I could just send you an email and say, I watched it.
It's on the honor system. That's it, just so that we know that, you've done it. I mean, the mayor had suggested maybe we do, 30 minutes before the next meeting or 45 minutes before the next meeting, but instead of taking additional time away from your families, I suggest you do it on your own time.
I want time away from my family.
I just wanted to bring to board's attention.
I have teenage daughters.
Don't we have an executive session? I thought we had an executive session.
Think we need what?
Executive session.
Oh, we did?
Want to go out?
Mr. Chairman,
There's
actually,
no
before
stuff.
we adjourn, yeah, we're going to, if we could just make a motion to move into executive session, it'll be very brief. Yeah, All right, we just need a, instead of a motion to adjourn, we have a motion to move into executive session.
Okay, so we are, can I have everybody's attention? We have a motion to adjourn into an executive session before adjournment, and this is on Mr. Sordillo, not me.
We just need a motion.
Do I
and
have a
second
motion?
and a vote
I'll move it.
to executive.
By Mr. Lenning, and a second? By Ms. Cannon.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Emakis? Yes. Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Chairman Marucci?
Yes. to get out of the executive session?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. De Palma, and a
Second.
second by Mr. Lenning?
Ms. Cannon? Yes. Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Amakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Chair Marucci?
Yes, and now a motion to adjourn
Motion.
by Mr. Lenning, and a second by Mr. De Palma. Go watch your hockey games now.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.